Okay, so today, in our continuing study of haiku, we are going to look at this example by Penny Harder, and we're going to put to use everything we learned last week. So we'll talk about how this is a poem about nature. We'll talk about the kigo, the koreji, and the comparison. So first, let's take a look at this haiku. Snowflakes, dust on the toes of my boots. Haiku are short poems about nature. This is about nature. It begins with snowflakes in the first line. It doesn't follow the 5-7-5 syllable pattern. It can be said in one breath. Snowflakes, dust on the toes of my boots. So let's take a look at the kigo. Do you remember what kigo is? Yes, it's a season word. Which word in this poem tells you which season it is? If you said snowflake, that would be one correct answer. Absolutely. It's winter. We might even get more specific. You could say dust is a kigo as well. Not that it's a season word specifically, but when you combined dust with snowflakes, it could be, as we get further into this conversation, it could be the dust from the toes of the boots is from like boots sitting around since last winter, maybe in a breezeway or basement. And this could be the first snowfall of the season. This could be early winter or late fall. But the most obvious choice for kigo, season word, is snowflake. Snowflakes. All right, koreji, the cut word. In English, those cut words are often not words at all. They are punctuation marks. Can you identify the punctuation mark that is the koreji? Of course, it's the only punctuation mark in the poem. It says hyphen right here. Yes. And it breaks this poem into two parts. And they are what's called asymmetrical. They're uneven. We have the first line, snowflakes, a single word. We have the next two lines after the koreji, dust on the toes of my boots. And that koreji does help us to know what's being compared. On the one side of the koreji is snowflakes, and on the other side of the koreji is dust on the toes of my boots. So we're meant to compare those two things. So let's do that. The fourth and final lesson from last week was on the comparison and making meaning from comparing two things in a haiku. So what would you compare in this haiku? Well, the first thing I compared was the snowflakes to the dust. On the one hand, the snowflakes could be the dust that are on the toes of my boots. You know, that dry, cold, powdery snow can often at times act like dust or sand and move around. And so it's as if this author had looked down at her boots and saw them covered in this very powdery, cold snow, fine little crystals of ice, sort of shifting around on the tops of her boots. Another comparison could be the one I mentioned earlier, the snowflakes being like dust, but the dust on the toes of my boots actually being real dust because maybe these boots have been sitting around since last winter and have collected dust. And now both the snowflakes and the dust maybe are intermingling. Maybe this is the first time the author's put on those boots and gone out into the snow because there has been no snow yet this season. Maybe it's early December and this is the first snowfall. In which case you now have the white snowflakes and the dirty dust mixing together. And now you can compare those two things, the color, the beautiful white snowflakes, the old dingy dust, how they both settle and fall on things. And maybe this is a poem about, it's perception our own human perception that determines whether things are beautiful or not. White, powdery snowflakes covering our toes are beautiful. Old, dirty brown dust is not. But they both sort of come from nature. They both aren't put there by humans. They're both not put there intentionally. So, what makes one beautiful and one ugly? That could be what this poem is about. That could be one train of thought you could continue to think about. Another train of thought could be um, the excitement this person might be feeling. I get the sense as I read this more and more, this person is sort of like, this is sort of like a first snowfall of the season type. I'm going to go out and enjoy this first snowfall. And she's put her boots on for the first time and she's in the snow and she notices the dust on the toes of her boots. And that reminds her that there's an exciting thing about this, a moment in that first snowfall of the season. And maybe this is a poem about how something so normal, so regular, so something we just never notice, like dust. Certainly never notice in a positive way. But in this one moment, that dust reminds her of that special feeling of the first snowfall. Maybe this is one train of thought in this poem could be about how those normal things of life, things that you just generally never noticed, like dust, can really indicate, or if we pay attention to them, really point us to those bigger special feelings and moments in life. We just slow down and look. There's many other trains of thought that this poem could take us down. It's a wonderful poem. It's beautifully written. It's so simple, but there's so much here to think about. So I'd encourage you to read this poem again. Memorize this poem today. Think about it as you drift off to sleep and see what other ideas you come up with. And incorporate Kigo and Koreji and comparison into your short poems about nature that we call haiku.